Hey, g'day everyone. Well, welcome to episode 2 of Everything Off Grid. And I thought I'd start this episode by talking a bit about why I started this channel. Now, for those of you who come across from my professional channel, which is called the Smart Energy Lab, I'll link it up here. It's actually, the Smart Energy Lab's all about the tech. It's all about solar, batteries, inverters, charge controllers, smart energy management, solar panels, installation methods, tracking systems, you name it. It's pretty tech, and also often quite deep in terms of safety standards and those requirements. But this channel is all about my experience of living off grid. So I've been living off grid for 30 years now, so I thought I'd share some of that with you, but I wanted to make it broader than just my experience. I live on a housing co-op. It's a intentional community. If you haven't heard the term, intentional means we live here because we intend to. Kind of simple, eh? So it's not a particular, it's not a spiritual community or a eco escape community or or preppers. It's basically people who choose to live here for various reasons, and I wanted to introduce you to some of those people on this channel. So you'll get to meet some of the Murumura Co-op and their stories, and also some of their learnings. So for instance, in the launch of this channel, I talked about some of the things I'm passionate about. And one of them was vegan cooking, which actually got a few negative comments. But look, frankly, I'll be sharing lots of people's views about food and diet. That's not just mine. So there's plenty of people here who are meat eaters, and I don't hold anything against them. We all make our personal choices. But the real intent here is at a low-tech level, though I'll probably kind of use a few technical terms by accident. I want to introduce people to what it is about living off-grid that's so appealing to me and to the people who live here, but also some of the tips that you might find useful about living off-grid. Now, the term gets thrown around an awful lot, so I better define my terms here. We don't have any grid power connected to this property. We don't have any water connected to this property. We do have a road. It's unsealed. We're about 20 kilometres from the nearest town and about an hour and a quarter from Melbourne Central, which is actually surprisingly close to a major city. But as you'll see from the aerial views, we're on top of a beautiful mountain, Mount Tulibuong, which is in the indigenous language, the place where the raven sat. So here at Mount Tulibuong, we've been running this cooperative since 1974. So that's 47 years of off-grid living without grid power, mains, water. But we do have some services. We do have a rubbish collection service. It actually came about 20 so years ago. People didn't actually want it, but the council provided it anyway because we pay rates. So there you go. We do have a rubbish service, but pretty much we manage a lot of the stuff ourselves. Some of those things, like food growing, is additional to what most people would do, which is buy food at a supermarket or a market or a whole food shop. We do grow some crops individually around our homes because we're blessed with beautiful soil and ample rainfall. We also have a large collective farming area. We call it the Hort area. And as you can see from the aerial views, it's quite large. In fact, part of it is leased out to a commercial organic farmer at the moment. So it's had a long history. It's been run as a commercial organic farm by some of the members here at the co-op for about 10 years. But more recently, it's a split arrangement. Part of it we use ourselves for growing large area crops like potatoes, pumpkins, and the commercial farmers grow their own crops on the other part of it. So that's food. In terms of water, most of the water actually just comes from the sky. Well, yeah, most of it comes from the sky, but some of it via an underground spring. So most people think of a spring as, water gushing from deep arterial flows. But here actually the spring, and we have about 7 springs on this property, but only one of them that we use, is really a soak. The water seeps into the soil, and after about 3 to 6 months, it comes out at a lower point, and it's been filtered through the soil. The rotted dacite, which is a kind of granite type rock base, and so it enhances some of its characteristics, and also, it's pretty clean. So that's actually spring water that about half the co-op, maybe more than half the co-op, currently use. But some of us actually felt that the rainwater was perfectly good and just collect that off the roofs of our houses. But I wanted to show you one of those systems, which is where we collect the water of 3 homes and some sheds, and allow it to drain into a sump tank. Now, the sump tank, as you can see, is just a big 35,000 litre concrete tank. It's at the low point below the roofs of all the houses. But we want that water at pressure. Now, there's 2 choices when you're off-grid. How do you generate pressure? One of them is you use a pressure pump. So whenever someone turns a tap on, the drop in pressure on the supply line will cause the pump to come on, and usually makes a bit of noise, and it pressurizes the water and provides you with water at your tap. Now that does work, and I've lived with pressure pumps for many years in a previous location, but one of the disadvantages with pressure pumps is there is a slight delay. You get this slightly bizarre phenomena of you turn a tap on, the water comes out a bit slow, and then it comes out fast. Now, some of that depends on the size of your pressure vessel that you have associated with your pressure pump, but it's not just the same as a very even pressure. Also, it uses energy, which means that you need electricity to run that pressure pump. And there's an area where you've got to think about how much energy is going to be used to run the pressure pump, and that needs to be part of your energy budget if you're electrically off-grid. Now, what we've done here is to try not to put everything into the electrical basket in terms of energy and services. So what we've done is used that tank that's at a low point with 35,000 litres of up to 35,000 litres of rainwater in it, and a float switch which turns on a controlled pump. Now, you might say, I thought you were trying to, avoid using electricity with water. Well, we only use the pump to transfer from a low point up to this header tank. Now, this header tank, as you can see, is huge. It's 260,000 litres. I'm not sure what that is in gallons. I'm a bit of a metric dude, but it's a lot of water. It's about 14 metres in diameter and about 3 metres high. So it's a huge volume of water, and that is 20 metres of vertical height difference from where the houses are. Now, 20 metres of vertical height difference is notionally 2 bars of pressure, but there'll be some pipe losses in that. So we get about 1.6 bar of pressure at the lowest point that flows down from this tank. So the purpose of it is that we capture surplus rainwater and pump it slowly using surplus solar energy. And that's the other big advantage of this system. When you turn a tap on, you aren't demanding high-powered pumps to run at that point. You're using gravity, which is great. The pumping is done at a slow rate over a long period of time using surplus solar, i.e. any battery systems that aren't yet full take the energy first, and once they're full, the surplus, what's known as dump load cycling, is dumped as surplus power to that pump and other things. So that pump runs slowly, quietly for many hours and sends the water up to this enormous 260,000 litre tank, which is actually seasonal storage. Someone did turn the pump off once and forgot for 6 months, and we still had water. So it's probably about 6 months worth of stored water in that tank for our use. The other big advantage of using this system is that we're not reliant on electricity in case of an emergency. So let's say for water pressure, let's say our electricity system fails, our inverter or batteries are flat, or there's a crisis like a house fire and the electricity's gone off. We've still got water pressure because it's independent of the electrical system. And that's a nice thing from a resilience point of view, is to have an independent source of water that's not dependent on your electricity system operating. So there you go. That's one of the first things that I learned about living off-grid, was to think of all the sources of energy available to you and choose the ones that gave you the best flexibility and services. I mean, if you're where we live, we grow wood extremely easy. We're in a temperate rainforest, basically, with lots of eucalyptus and wattles, and they grow very fast. So firewood actually is an excellent source of energy for heating. So primarily most people heat their houses with wood, burning it in slow combustion stoves or wood heaters, and that also heats their hot water. So that's taking out of the electrical budget the heating services predominantly. But actually things are starting to change. The cost of solar panels has become very low, and we've got a very large amount. We've got soon we'll have about 100 kilowatts of solar connected to 7 homes in a microgrid, which I'll show you more about. I've done some technical tours of the microgrid, but I'm going to give you a simplistic view of it on this channel in episodes coming up. Now, this microgrid allows us to share the surplus energy, and often on a sunny day like today, where everyone's batteries are full, usually by midday, and all the electric cars are charged up. Yes, we've got a lot of electric cars here, I think about 6 or 7 of them now. Some of them are plug-in hybrids. There's 4 full electrics and the rest are plug-in hybrids. Once their batteries are full, the surplus energy starts to flow to non-essential loads like heating water. So actually we do heat our house, certainly in the equinox period where it's sometimes sunny enough to have surplus and it's still cold enough to want to heat your house. We use electricity to heat water, which then is pumped through a hydronic system. So here's a quick look at the hydronic system, but I will go into this in greater depth. It's pretty complicated looking, but actually to run it, you basically just do nothing. It looks after itself. And big shout out to Energy Smart Water who helped me with the design on this. They're really great. Thanks a lot, team there. And also the plumbing systems that were installed by some really good plumbers. It took quite a lot to get it right, partly because I started designing it and I didn't know a thing about plumbing, and then my plumber said, Glenn, you've just designed a steam bomb. So yeah, when you're getting into more complicated systems like plumbing and electrical systems, you really need a professional. Anyway, that's one of the things I've learnt, is to call upon those services when you really need them. Now, the other thing I wanted to tell you a bit about is what do I do? Now, some of you will know that on my day-to-day basis, I'm involved in running the Smart Energy Lab, which I started about 5 years ago here at Muramura Co-op. And as you can see behind me, there's a lot of equipment. A lot of this equipment has been donated by companies, partly for my students to train on, partly for me to learn about how they work, and also as a kind of field testing of the products. So let's have a little look around and we'll see what's up. So here we go. So this is what I call my studio because I do quite a bit of filming of content here. Sometimes it's an unboxing video, or sometimes it's an explainer video explaining how equipment works. I also do a bit of training videos where we train on how to use a product. And sometimes it's just me walking about, talking about the systems here and introducing their features. So there's a lot of inverters. This is just one of about 6 labs here. In fact, I say about 6 because we've actually just about started a 7th one. And they're mostly old sheds. This was built by my neighbour as just an old shed for them to use for woodworking basically. So they're not very flash. And it's also very messy at the moment because we're in the middle of filming a training video, and so there's lights and camera gear and microphones. So in this room, we started about 5 years ago, the very first lab, and this is called training room number 1, or the blue room because of the blue ceiling. So yeah, I spend quite a bit of time with in here, sometimes with my electrician Anne, working on these systems here. So at the moment we're doing some energy monitoring equipment. We're doing a training video on that. And I'll link up here when we got it, because we haven't finished it yet, the training video. And around this side, quite a lot of storage, but also some more inverters. Like I said, there's a lot of inverters here at the Smart Energy Lab, and here we go. This is a Selectronic SP Pro, one of my favorite off-grid inverters, by the way, but they're quite a premium inverter, but really worth it when it comes to quality. And there's some of the on-grid products like this. This is a hybrid inverter, really designed for on-grid use. But because I run a simulated grid, I've got a 3-phase simulated grid here, I can test a lot of this gear. Now on this channel, I'm not going to go into the deep technical side of this equipment, but I will kind of give you a use case for much of it, saying, what it's good for when it comes to powering homes off-grid. And some products are really not designed for off-grid, though you'll find them being used off-grid, But when I say not designed, it's a compromise. They might not have all the feature set that you're expecting in terms of their performance, their ability to do things like start a backup generator or whatever. But anyway, that's just a little look around my main studio here at the Smart Energy Lab, and just wanted to tell you a little bit about what I do on a day-to-day basis before we get into more of the off-grid living tech. So everything off-grid includes everything. We'll get there eventually. This channel's going to have a long life, I suspect. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and the usual story. Give us a like and subscribe thing. It does kind of help, and it helps spread the good word about why it's so good to be living off-grid. Thanks a lot.